The abandoned Sentinel, the desolate planet of Ceres 7, was a stark testament to the brutality of interstellar warfare. Its once lush landscapes had been reduced to a barren wasteland, scarred by the relentless exchange of advanced weaponry between humanity and the Kravax Empire. The air hung heavy with the acrid stench of burnt vegetation and the lingering traces of energy discharges, a grim reminder of the battles that had raged across its surface. Amidst the ruins of what was once a thriving Kravax military outpost, a lone figure lay motionless. Partially hidden beneath the twisted wreckage of a downed assault craft, the massive form of Sentinel K9, a genetically engineered war beast of the Kravax, fought for every labored breath. His formidable body, a masterpiece of alien bioengineering, was covered in thick, armored scales, now marred by deep gashes and burns. One of his powerful legs was crushed beneath a slab of metal, rendering him immobile. Sentinel K9, or 9, as he had been designated, was a prime example of Kravax military might. Bred for unwavering loyalty, superhuman strength, and a savage ferocity in battle, he had been at the forefront of countless engagements against human forces. His kind were feared across known space, stories of their battlefield prowess spreading like wildfire among human ranks. They were the nightmares that kept enemy soldiers awake at night, the unstoppable force that could turn the tide of any conflict. But now, as 9 lay amid the debris of the fallen outpost, he was nothing more than another casualty of war. The Kravax forces had retreated in haste, abandoning their position in the face of a surprisingly effective human counterattack. In their rush to evacuate, they had left behind anything that would slow them down, including their wounded war beasts. 9's once brilliant eyes, capable of piercing the darkness of the blackest night, were now dull and unfocused. The pain from his injuries was overwhelming, each shallow breath sending waves of agony through his battered body. Yet, even in his weakened state, the war beast's highly developed senses remained alert. He could smell the lingering scent of human soldiers, hear the distant rumble of their vehicles as they secured the area. In the past, such sensory input would have triggered an immediate and violent response from 9. He had been conditioned to view humans as the enemy, targets to be eliminated without hesitation. But now, lying broken and abandoned, those ingrained responses seemed to matter less. What use was his hatred, his training, when his own masters had deemed him expendable? As the hours passed, 9 drifted in and out of consciousness. The planet's harsh sun beat down mercilessly, its rays amplifying the discomfort of his injuries. Thirst began to gnaw at him, his throat parched and burning. In his more lucid moments, 9 contemplated the cruel irony of his situation. He, who had been created to be the perfect weapon, was now helpless as a newborn pup. The sound of approaching footsteps roused 9 from his stupor. His nostrils flared, catching the unmistakable scent of a human. Instinct told him to growl, to bare his fearsome teeth in a display of aggression. But he lacked the strength even for that. All he could manage was a weak twitch of his ears, a pitiful response for a creature engineered to inspire terror. "Holy shit," a voice exclaimed, the words unfamiliar to 9, but the tone of surprise unmistakable. "There's one still alive over here." More footsteps approached, and 9 found himself surrounded by human soldiers. Their weapons were drawn, aimed squarely at his head. He could smell their fear, hear the rapid beating of their hearts. They knew what he was capable of, even in this weakened state. "Be careful," another voice warned. "These things are dangerous, even when they're half dead." 9 closed his eyes, waiting for the inevitable. He had seen his fellow sentinels put down by human forces before, knew the protocol for dealing with such a potentially dangerous enemy combatant. A quick, clean shot to the head, it would be over in an instant. But the expected blast never came. Instead, 9 felt a gentle touch on his flank, causing him to flinch involuntarily. "Easy there, big guy," a softer voice said. "I'm not going to hurt you." 9's eyes snapped open, focusing on a figure kneeling beside him. It was a human female, her armor bearing the insignia of a medical officer. Her hands were empty, no weapon in sight. Instead, she held a strange device that she was running over his body. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, severe dehydration, she muttered, more to herself than to her companions. It's a miracle he's still alive. So what? One of the soldiers spat. It's just a Krovax war dog. Put it out of its misery and let's move on. The medic turned, her eyes flashing with anger. This war dog is a living, breathing creature. It's wounded and in pain. We don't abandon the wounded, not even our enemies. Her words stirred something in Nine. Throughout his existence, he had been treated as a weapon, a tool to be used and discarded at will. But this human spoke of him as if he mattered, as if his life had value beyond his usefulness in battle. Lieutenant Chen, we can't possibly. Another soldier began, but was quickly cut off. That's an order, Sergeant, the medic, Lieutenant Chen said firmly. We're taking him with us. Prep the heavy transport and get me a stasis field generator. Move. As the other soldiers scrambled to follow her commands, Lieutenant Chen turned back to Nine. Her eyes met his, and for the first time in his life, Nine saw something other than fear or hatred in a human's gaze. There was compassion there and determination. Hang in there, big guy, she said softly, her hand gently stroking his armored head. I don't know if you can understand me, but I promise you this, you're not going to die here. Not today. As the stasis field shimmered into existence around him, Nine felt the pain begin to recede. His last conscious thought before the merciful darkness of suspended animation took him was one of confusion and wonder. Why would these humans, his sworn enemies, choose to save him? It was a question that would change the course of his life, and perhaps the fate of two species locked in bitter conflict, forever, awakening to a new world. The hum of advanced medical equipment filled the air as Lieutenant Area Chen stood before the massive stasis pod. Her dark eyes were fixed on the readings scrolling across the holographic display, a mix of concern and fascination etched on her face. It had been 3 weeks since they had rescued the Krovax war beast from the battlefield of Sierra 7, and every day brought new surprises. How's our patient doing today, LT? A gruff voice asked from behind her. Arya turned to see Chief Medical Officer Zachariah, Doc Morrison, entering the high-security medical bay. The older man's salt-and-pepper beard couldn't hide the curiosity in his expression as he approached the stasis pod. His vitals are stabilizing, Doc, Arya replied, gesturing to the display. The nanite treatments are working better than we expected. His regenerative capabilities are, frankly, astounding. Doc nodded, stroking his beard thoughtfully. I've never seen anything like it. The Krovax sure know how to build 'em. As they spoke, the creature in the pod stirred slightly, causing both humans to tense. Even unconscious and heavily sedated, the war beast was an intimidating sight. Its massive frame barely fit in the reinforced pod, rippling muscles visible beneath a layer of metallic scales. Scars crisscrossed its body, telling tales of countless battles fought and won. Have you thought about what we're going to do when he wakes up? Doc asked, voicing the concern that had been on everyone's mind. The brass is getting antsy. Some are calling for his immediate termination. Arya's jaw clenched. That's not an option. We didn't save him just to put him down like some rabid animal. I agree, Doc said, holding up his hands placatingly. But we need a plan. This isn't just any POW we're dealing with. He's been engineered from the ground up to be the perfect killing machine. Before Arya could respond, an alarm blared from the medical console. Both officers rushed to the display, their eyes widening at the readings. He's waking up, Arya exclaimed, her fingers flying over the controls. The sedatives aren't working anymore. His system is burning through them too quickly. Doc hit the comm panel on the wall. Security to Med Bay Alpha. Hostile asset awakening. This is not a drill. The next few moments were a blur of activity. Armed guards poured into the room, taking up positions around the stasis pod. Aria found herself pushed behind a protective barrier, her protests falling on deaf ears as the security team prepared for the worst. With a hiss of escaping gases, the stasis pod began to open. The room held its collective breath as the war beast's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly intelligence. For a moment, everything was still. Then, chaos erupted. The creature burst from the pod with explosive force, sending shards of reinforced plasteel flying. Guards opened fire, but their energy weapons seemed to do little more than annoy the beast. It moved with impossible speed for something its size, a blur of claws and fangs. "Hold your fire," Aria screamed, pushing past the barrier. "You'll kill him." But her words were drowned out by the sound of combat. The war beast had already incapacitated 2 guards, its movements a terrifying blend of animal ferocity and tactical precision. It was backing the remaining security team into a corner, its massive jaws opening to deliver a killing blow. In that moment, Aria made a decision that would change everything. She stepped forward, placing herself between the creature and the guards. "Stop," she commanded, her voice ringing with authority. To everyone's shock, including Aria's, the war beast froze. Its glowing eyes locked onto her, filled with a swirling mix of confusion, anger, and recognition. "That's right," Aria said softly, keeping her voice calm and even. "You remember me, don't you? I'm not going to hurt you. No one here is going to hurt you." The creature's head tilted slightly, nostrils flaring as it took in her scent. A low rumble emanated from its chest, not quite a growl, but not friendly either. Slowly, carefully, Aria raised her hand, palm out. It was a gesture she had used countless times to calm frightened animals back on her family's farm on Earth. But this was no simple farm animal. This was a being created for war, programmed to see humans as the enemy. "It's okay," she murmured, taking a small step forward. "You're safe here. We want to help you." The war beast's eyes narrowed, its powerful muscles tensing. For a heart-stopping moment, Aria thought it was going to attack. But then, to the astonishment of everyone in the room, it slowly lowered its massive head, bringing it level with Aria's outstretched hand. The contact, when it came, sent a jolt through Aria's body. The creature's scales were warm to the touch, vibrating slightly with each breath. She could feel the raw power contained within its frame, the potential for violence held in check by what? Curiosity, trust. "That's it," Aria breathed, a smile breaking across her face. "Good boy." The war beast made a sound then, a rumbling purr that seemed to resonate through the entire room. It was a sound of contentment, of acceptance. And in that moment, Aria knew that everything had changed. "Lieutenant Chen," Doc's voice came from behind her, filled with awe and a hint of fear. "What in the 7 hells did you just do?" Aria turned, her hand still resting on the creature's head. "I think," she said slowly, "I just made first contact." As the tension in the room slowly dissipated, replaced by a sense of wonder and possibility, Aria's mind was already racing ahead. This wasn't just a rescued enemy combatant anymore. This was a bridge between 2 species, a chance to understand the Kryvax in ways they never had before. But more than that, as she looked into the war beast's eyes and saw the spark of intelligence there, Aria realized that they had stumbled upon something truly revolutionary. This creature, designed for destruction, had the capacity for so much more. "We need to give him a name," she said suddenly, surprising herself. Doc raised an eyebrow. "A name? Aria, this isn't a pet. It's a sentient being," Aria finished firmly. "One who deserves to be treated as such." She turned back to the creature, studying its scared but noble features. "How about nexus? It means a connection, a link between different things." The war beast, nexus, rumbled again, this time almost like a chuff of approval. As the medical team cautiously approached to begin their examinations, and the security guards picked themselves up off the floor, Aria couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, misunderstandings, and danger. But it also held the promise of discovery, of breaking down the barriers that had kept their species at war for so long. Nexus, the abandoned sentinel, had been given a second chance, and in doing so, he might just give humanity a chance to redefine its place in the galaxy. The story of the alien war dog and the human who defied the odds to save him was only just beginning, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see what would unfold. Bridging worlds. The observation deck of the UES Horizon hummed with nervous energy as Admiral Kira Yoshida paced before the assembled team. Her stern gaze swept across the faces of the unlikely group, scientists, soldiers, and one massive alien war beast. Operation Starbridge, Admiral Yoshida began, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's hopes, is perhaps the most audacious undertaking in the history of our species. Lieutenant Chen, you have the floor. Arya stepped forward, acutely aware of Nexus's towering presence beside her. The Kryvax war beast had become her shadow over the past months, that unlikely bond the cornerstone of this unprecedented mission. Thank you, Admiral, Arya said, activating the holographic display. A swirling map of contested space materialized before them. For decades, we've been locked in a bloody stalemate with the Kryvax Empire, but thanks to Nexus, we now have a chance to change everything. The display zoomed in on a distant star system, pulsing with an eerie red light. This is the Crimson Nexus, a cosmic anomaly at the heart of Kryvax space. Our intel suggests it's not just a strategic stronghold, but the source of their technological superiority. Nexus rumbled softly, his bioluminescent eyes flickering with recognition. Arya laid a hand on his armored flank, a gesture that still drew wary glances from some of the crew. Nexus's genetic memory contains coordinates and access codes to the Crimson Nexus, Arya continued. But more than that, he represents a bridge between our species, a living proof that cooperation is possible. Dr. Zara Venn, the team's xenobiologist, spoke up. The implications are staggering. If we can unlock the secrets of Kryvax bioengineering, it could revolutionize medicine, space travel, even our understanding of life itself. And if we're wrong? Captain Marcus Graves, the mission's security lead, countered. We could be walking into a trap that ends the war with our extinction. Nexus growled low, his massive head swinging towards Graves. The captain's hand instinctively moved to his weapon, but Arya stepped between them. Easy, big guy, she murmured to Nexus before addressing the group. Yes, there are risks, but the potential rewards: peace, an end to a war that's claimed billions of lives, knowledge that could propel both our species into a new era of exploration and discovery. Admiral Yoshida nodded, her expression grave. The Council has green-lit the mission. You depart at 600 tomorrow. May the stars guide you. As the briefing dispersed, Arya found herself alone with Nexus on the observation deck. The vastness of space stretched before them, a canvas of infinite possibilities. Are you ready for this, boy? She asked softly. Nexus rumbled, pressing his massive head against her side. In the months since his rescue, they had developed a form of communication that transcended words. Arya felt his determination, his loyalty, but also undercurrent of longing. You miss them, don't you? She realized. Your own kind. The war beast's eyes dimmed slightly, a sight that never failed to tug at Arya's heart. She had come to see past the fearsome exterior to the complex being beneath. Nexus was a creature torn between worlds, and this mission was as much about finding his place as it was about ending a war. We'll find answers, Arya promised, her voice filled with conviction, for both of us. As if in response, the stars seemed to shimmer, casting the odd pair in a soft, otherworldly glow. Human and alien, standing side by side, poised to embark on a journey that would reshape the galaxy. The next morning, as the UES Horizon prepared for its historic voyage, the atmosphere was electric. Crew members hustled about, making last-minute preparations and stealing glances at the imposing figure of Nexus as he strode confidently beside Aria. In the launch bay, Dr. Venn approached them, her eyes shining with excitement. "Lieutenant, I've been analyzing the latest data from Nexus's neural scans. The complexity of his cognitive processes is off the charts. I think he might be evolving." Aria's eyebrows shot up. Evolving? How? "His interactions with us, especially you, are reshaping his neural pathways," Venn explained. "It's as if his mind is adapting, finding new ways to bridge the gap between our species." Before Aria could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Captain Graves' voice crackled over the comms. "Incoming hostile vessels. All hands to battle stations." The launch bay erupted into controlled chaos as crew members scrambled to their posts. Aria turned to Nexus, seeing the conflict in his glowing eyes. This would be their first real test. Would he stand with them against his former masters? "Nexus," Aria said firmly, locking eyes with the war beast. "We need you. Are you with us?" For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, Nexus stood motionless. Then, with a thunderous roar that shook the very bulkheads of the ship, he lowered his massive body into a battle stance beside Aria. "That's my boy," Aria grinned, drawing her pulse rifle. "Let's show them what Starbridge is all about." As they raced towards the bridge, Aria's mind whirled with possibilities. This attack was no coincidence. Someone had leaked their mission. But who? And why? The answers, she suspected, lay in the mysteries of the Crimson Nexus. One thing was certain, their journey was off to an explosive start. With Nexus by her side, Aria felt ready to face whatever the cosmos threw at them. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see how this unprecedented alliance would reshape the fate of two species locked in conflict. The battle for the future of humanity and Privax alike had begun, and at its heart stood an unlikely pair, a human woman and an alien war beast, united in their quest for understanding and peace. As the UES Horizon engaged its faster-than-light drives, preparing to plunge into the unknown, Aria felt a surge of determination. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The bridge between worlds had been built. Now it was time to cross it. Echoes of the Crimson Void. The UES Horizon emerged from hyperspace with a violent shudder, alarms blaring across every deck. Lieutenant Aria Chen steadied herself against a console, her eyes widening at the view screen before her. By the cosmic core, she breathed, awe and terror mingling in her voice. The Crimson Nexus loomed before them, a swirling maelstrom of scarlet energy that defied the laws of physics. Lightning-like tendrils of crimson power lashed out into space, creating a treacherous maze for any approaching vessels. Captain Graves' voice cut through the stunned silence. "Report. What in the seven hells are we looking at?" Dr. Venn's fingers flew across her station. It's like nothing we've ever encountered. The energy readings are off the charts. It's not just a stellar phenomenon, it's alive." As if in response to her words, a massive tendril of crimson energy snaked towards the horizon. Nexus, standing protectively near Aria, let out a low, rumbling growl that seemed to vibrate through the entire ship. "Evasive maneuvers," Graves barked, but it was too late. The energy tendril enveloped the horizon, bathing the ship in an eerie red glow. For a moment, everything went silent. Then a cacophony of voices filled every crew member's mind, whispers, screams, and songs in an alien language that felt ancient and terrible. Aria clutched her head, overwhelmed by the psychic assault. Through the haze of alien thoughts, she locked eyes with Nexus. The war beast's bioluminescent gaze was intense, filled with recognition and fear. "Nexus," Aria gasped, fighting through the mental storm. You know this place. What is it?" The massive creature whined, a sound so full of anguish it broke Aria's heart. Then, to everyone's shock, Nexus spoke. His voice was deep and gravelly, the words clearly difficult for him to form. Birthplace, he rumbled. Cradle of pain, where I was born. The bridge fell silent, all eyes on the alien war beast who had finally found his voice. Dr. Venn was the first to recover. Incredible. The Crimson Nexus must be amplifying his latent psychic abilities. Nexus, can you tell us more? Before he could respond, the ship lurched violently. Outside, the swirling energies of the Nexus began to coalesce, forming what looked like a massive, glowing portal. Multiple contacts incoming. The tactical officer shouted, They're Kryvax ships, but like nothing we've ever seen before." Through the portal emerged a fleet of biomechanical vessels, their designs an unsettling fusion of organic curves and sharp metallic edges. At their center was a massive dreadnought that pulsed with the same crimson energy as the Nexus itself. A face appeared on the view screen, a Kryvax commander, his features sharp and cruel. "Humans," he snarled, "you dare to trespass in the sacred forge of our empire, and you bring one of our wayward children with you." His eyes locked onto Nexus, filled with a mixture of disgust and hunger. Arya stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "We come seeking peace and understanding. The war between our species has gone on long enough." The Kryvax commander laughed, a chilling sound. "Peace, understanding. You understand nothing, human. The Crimson Nexus is the source of our power, the wellspring from which we draw our superiority. And now, thanks to you, we will use it to end this war once and for all." The dreadnought's weapon systems began to power up, crimson energy coalescing at its bow. Arya turned to Nexus, desperation in her eyes. "Nexus, please, we need you. Can you communicate with them?" Nexus's massive form trembled, caught between two worlds. Then, with a roar that shook the very fabric of space-time, he projected his thoughts outward. Images flooded the minds of everyone present, human and Kryvax alike. They saw the pain of Nexus's creation, the countless battles he had fought, but also the kindness he had experienced at human hands. They felt his confusion, his longing for belonging, and his hope for a future where both species could coexist. The Kryvax commander staggered back, overwhelmed by the psychic onslaught. "Impossible," he whispered. You've evolved beyond your programming." Arya seized the moment. "This is what we came here to show you. We don't have to be enemies. Together, we could unlock the true potential of the Crimson Nexus, use its power to heal instead of destroy." For a tense moment, the fate of two species hung in the balance. Then, slowly, the weapons on the Kryvax dreadnought powered down. "Perhaps," the commander said slowly, "we have been blind to certain possibilities." As negotiations began, Arya turned to Nexus, tears in her eyes. "You did it, boy. You bridged the gap." Nexus rumbled contentedly, nuzzling Arya's hand. Around them, the Crimson Nexus pulsed with newfound warmth, as if approving of this first step towards peace. But even as hope blossomed, a shadow lurked at the edges of Arya's mind. The Crimson Nexus was more than just a source of power. It was an entity unto itself, ancient and inscrutable. And as both humans and Kryvax prepared to delve into its mysteries, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something far greater and more terrifying than they could imagine. The war might be ending, but a new chapter in galactic history was just beginning. And at its heart stood Nexus, no longer just a war beast, but a true nexus between worlds, holding the key to a future that would reshape the very stars themselves. The Quantum Crucible. The observation deck of the newly christened Joint Human Kryvax Research Station, Harmony, buzzed with an electric mix of excitement and trepidation. Scientists from both species huddled around holographic displays, their tentative collaborations a testament to the fragile peace brokered by Nexus's unprecedented intervention. Lieutenant Arya Chen stood at the heart of this interspecies tapestry, her hand resting on Nexus's massive flank. The war beast's bioluminescent eyes pulsed with an intelligence that seemed to grow by the day, fueled by the mysterious energies of the Crimson Nexus. "Nexus?" Arya whispered. "What do you sense?" The creature's response reverberated through her mind, a symphony of images and emotions that left her breathless. Change. Nexus rumbled, his newly acquired vocabulary still limited but powerful. The void, it sings of metamorphosis. Before Arya could probe further, alarms blared across the station. Dr. Zara Ven's voice crackled over the comms, tight with urgency. All personnel to the quantum lab now. We've made a breakthrough, or maybe triggered a catastrophe. Arya and Nexus raced through the station's winding corridors, a blur of human and alien forms. They burst into the quantum lab to find chaos. At the center of the room, a swirling vortex of crimson energy pulsated, sending out waves of raw power that made reality itself seem to ripple. Dr. Ven stood before a bank of frantically beeping equipment, her eyes wide with a mixture of scientific awe and primal fear. We were attempting to harness a fraction of the Nexus's power, she explained breathlessly. But something went wrong. Or terribly right. The quantum field has destabilized. We're creating universes. As if to punctuate her words, the vortex expanded, revealing glimpses of other realities. In one, Earth gleamed as a utopian paradise. In another, it lay in ruins, conquered by the Krevax. And in yet another, both species had evolved into beings of pure energy, their former conflicts forgotten in the face of cosmic enlightenment. By the stellar forges, Krevax chief scientist Zoxol hissed, his tentacles writhing in agitation. We've torn the fabric of reality itself. Nexus stepped forward, his massive form radiating an otherworldly calm. He locked eyes with Arya, and in that moment she understood what needed to be done. Nexus, she said softly, you're the key. The living bridge between our species, between realities. Can you stabilize it? The war beast nodded solemnly. As he approached the swirling vortex, his body began to glow with the same crimson energy. Arya felt a surge of fear. Would this destroy him? Transform him? But she pushed it aside, trusting in the bond they had forged. Nexus roared, a sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of reality. The vortex responded, its chaotic energies coalescing around him. For a heart-stopping moment, Nexus's form blurred, as if he existed in multiple realities at once. Then, with a blinding flash, everything stabilized. The vortex contracted, shrinking down to a softball-sized orb of pulsing crimson energy that hovered before Nexus. What just happened? Captain Graves demanded, his hand hovering near his weapon. Dr. Ven's fingers flew across her instruments, her voice filled with wonder. He's done it. Nexus has somehow harmonized the quantum fluctuations. This orb, it's a contained gateway to infinite possibilities. Arya approached Nexus cautiously. The war beast turned to her, his eyes now swirling with the same crimson energy as the orb. When he spoke, his voice seemed to echo from 1,000 throats. I see it all now, Arya, Nexus said, his words clear and resonant. The past, the future, the paths not taken. Our conflict, our potential unity, they're all part of a greater cosmic dance. Zoxol slithered forward, his scientific curiosity overriding his caution. You mean to say that this quantum crucible allows us to glimpse and potentially access other realities? Nexus nodded. More than that, it offers us a choice. We can learn from these other paths, use this knowledge to forge a better future. Or we could use it as the ultimate weapon, Graves finished grimly. Rewrite reality itself to ensure our species' dominance. The room fell silent as the weight of this revelation settled over them. The power to reshape existence itself lay within their grasp, a temptation that could easily reignite the very war they had sought to end. Arya stepped forward, her voice ringing with conviction. No, we didn't come this far, bridge this gap between our species, just to fall back into conflict. This gift, this quantum crucible, it's not a weapon, it's a responsibility. She turned to address the assembled humans and Krevax. Don't you see? We've been given a chance to learn from every possible mistake, every triumph, every path our species could have taken. We can use this knowledge to build something greater than either of us could have imagined alone. Nexus rumbled his approval, the crimson orb pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. The Crimson Nexus chose us, he intoned, not as conquerors, but as custodians. The question is, are we worthy of that trust? As Human and Privac's eyes met across the lab, a new understanding began to dawn. The war that had defined their species for so long suddenly seemed petty in the face of this cosmic revelation. Zoxol was the first to break the silence. "I propose a new initiative," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "Project Harmony. We will use this quantum crucible not to dominate, but to learn to grow, to become something greater than the sum of our parts." One by one, heads nodded in agreement. The atmosphere in the lab shifted, charged with a new sense of purpose and unity. Arya smiled, tears glistening in her eyes as she looked up at Nexus. "You really are a nexus," she whispered. "A connection point not just between species, but between realities, between what is and what could be." As the team began to plan their first foray into the quantum crucible, Arya couldn't help but feel a sense of vertigo. They stood on the precipice of a new era, one that would redefine not just their place in the universe, but the very nature of existence itself. The abandoned war dog and the human who had saved him had set in motion a chain of events that would echo across realities. As they prepared to take their first steps into the unknown, guided by the pulsing light of the quantum crucible, one thing was certain: the greatest adventure in the history of both species was just beginning. Echoes of infinity. The quantum crucible pulsed with an otherworldly glow, its crimson light casting long shadows across the faces of the assembled team. Lieutenant Arya Chen stood at the forefront, her hand resting on Nexus's massive shoulder. The war beast's eyes swirled with the same ethereal energy as the orb before them, a living conduit to the multiverse. "Are we really going to do this?" Captain Graves muttered, his usual bravado tempered by the weight of the moment. Dr. Venn nodded, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface. "Project Harmony is go. We're about to make the first controlled jump into a parallel reality." Zoxol, the Kryvak's chief scientist, extended a tentacle towards the crucible. "May the cosmic winds guide us to wisdom, not ruin." As the team made final preparations, Arya knelt beside Nexus. "You okay, big guy?" she asked softly. Nexus rumbled, his newly expanded vocabulary still tinged with a bestial growl. "Many cells, many paths. We walk the nice edge of creation." Before Arya could respond, the quantum crucible flared to life. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp around them, the very fabric of space-time stretching like taffy. There was a moment of vertigo, a sensation of falling through an infinite void, and then they stood on the bridge of a starship, but one unlike anything they had ever seen. Organic curves melded seamlessly with advanced technology, a perfect fusion of human ingenuity and Kryvak's bioengineering. By the void, Zoxol gasped, his tentacles writhing in excitement. This is what true harmony between our species could create." But as they marveled at their surroundings, a commotion from the far end of the bridge caught their attention. A group of officers, a mix of humans and Kryvaks, were gathered around a view screen, their faces etched with concern. Arya approached cautiously, Nexus at her side. On the screen, a massive structure loomed against the backdrop of space. It pulsed with familiar crimson energy, but on a scale that dwarfed even the Crimson Nexus they knew. The Omega Confluence, one of the officers, a future version of Dr. Venn, was saying, "It's destabilizing. If we don't act soon, it could tear apart the entire multiverse." The team exchanged glances, the weight of this revelation settling over them. They had come seeking knowledge, but had stumbled upon a crisis that threatened not just their reality, but all realities. "We have to help them," Arya said firmly. Captain Graves frowned. "Hold on, Lieutenant. We don't know the first thing about this. Omega Confluence. We could make things worse. Or Zoxal interjected, his eyes gleaming with scientific fervor. We could be the key to solving a problem they haven't even considered. We bring an outside perspective, knowledge from a different point in the timeline. As the team debated, Nexus stepped forward. The bridge fell silent as the massive war beast approached the viewscreen, his eyes locked on the image of the Omega confluence. I hear its song, Nexus rumbled, his voice resonating with otherworldly harmonics. The pain of fractured realities, the cry of a wounded multiverse. We are needed. The future version of Dr. Venn turned, her eyes widening as she took in the sight of Nexus. Incredible, she breathed. You've come from the past, haven't you? And you've brought him. She approached Nexus, her hand outstretched. In our timeline, Nexus sacrificed himself to stabilize a first quantum rift. But you're still in your prime, still connected to the original Crimson Nexus. Aria felt a chill run down her spine. What are you saying? The future Ven's eyes shone with a mixture of hope and trepidation. I'm saying that your Nexus might be our only hope of averting multiversal collapse. As if in response to her words, alarms blared across the bridge. The view screen flickered, showing scenes of chaos erupting across multiple realities. Civilizations crumbling, stars going nova, the very laws of physics unraveling. The Omega confluence is reaching critical mass, Future Ven explained hurriedly. We need to act now, or all of existence is doomed. Aria looked at Nexus, seeing the determination in his swirling crimson eyes. She knew, with a certainty that transcended words, what needed to be done. All right, she said, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her heart. What do we need to do? The next few hours were a blur of frantic preparation. The team worked alongside their future counterparts, synthesizing their knowledge to devise a plan that seemed equal parts science and madness. At the heart of it all was Nexus. The war beast stood in a specially designed chamber, his massive form connected to a web of pulsing energy conduits. He would serve as a living anchor, using his unique connection to the Crimson Nexus to stabilize the Omega confluence. As the final preparations were made, Aria stood before Nexus, tears glistening in her eyes. You don't have to do this, she whispered. We can find another way. Nexus lowered his head, nuzzling her gently. All paths lead here, Aria. This is my purpose, my destiny, to bridge not just worlds, but realities. With a heavy heart, Aria stepped back. The chamber sealed, and waves of crimson energy began to flow through Nexus. His roar shook the very foundations of reality as he channeled the power of the Omega confluence. On the viewscreen, they watched in awe as rifts in space-time began to close. Shattered realities knitted themselves back together, the multiverse healing under Nexus's influence. But the strain on the war beast was immense. Aria could see the pain in his eyes, the toll this cosmic effort was taking on him. We have to stop this, she cried, turning to the future Ven. It's killing him. The scientist shook her head sadly. If we stop now, everything unravels. The multiverse dies. Aria felt helpless, watching as Nexus poured every ounce of his being into saving existence itself. She pressed her hand against the chamber's viewport, wishing she could lend him her strength. And then something miraculous happened. Nexus of eyes met hers, and in that moment, Aria felt a connection that transcended time and space. She saw flashes of other realities, versions of herself and Nexus, in countless variations, always finding each other, always making a difference. Thank you. Nexus's voice echoed in her mind, filled with warmth and gratitude. For saving me, for believing in me, for showing me that even a creature bred for war could find a greater purpose. With a final, earth-shattering roar, Nexus unleashed the full extent of his power. The Omega confluence stabilized, reality solidified, and the multiverse was saved. As the energy faded, Aria rushed to the chamber. Nexus lay still, his once bright eyes dim. But as she approached, she felt it, a faint pulse of life, a spark of the indomitable spirit that had drawn them together across the cosmos. He's alive, she breathed, hope blossoming in her chest. Battered, weakened, but alive. As the team gathered around, human and Kryvax alike, a sense of awe settled over them. They had witnessed something truly extraordinary, a being created for destruction becoming the savior of all existence. The future then smiled, tears in her eyes. "You've changed everything," she said softly. "This isn't just a victory for our reality, but for all realities. You've shown us what's possible when we put aside our differences and work together." As they prepared to return to their own time, Arya couldn't help but feel a sense of destiny. They had set out to bridge the gap between two species, but had ended up safeguarding the very fabric of the multiverse. Nexus, the abandoned war dog who had defied the odds, had become something greater than anyone could have imagined. And as they stepped back through the quantum crucible, Arya knew that their greatest adventures and challenges still lay ahead. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, echoing with the promise of a future where anything was possible, where the bonds of friendship and understanding could literally save existence itself. Quantum resurrection. The return to their home reality was far from the triumphant homecoming Arya had imagined. As the quantum crucible's energies dissipated, leaving them back in the familiar surroundings of the Harmony Station, a wave of exhaustion washed over the team. But for Arya, all that mattered was the barely breathing form of Nexus cradled in her arms. "Med Bay now," she barked, her voice cracking with urgency. As they raced through the station's corridors, a cacophony of alarms blared. The station's systems, still linked to Nexus's vital signs, were registering his critical condition. Dr. Vent's fingers flew across holographic interfaces as they burst into the Med Bay. "His cellular structure is destabilizing," she announced, her voice tight with concern. "The strain of channeling the Omega confluence, it's tearing him apart at the quantum level." Zoxol slithered forward, his tentacles weaving complex patterns in the air as he interfaced with Kryvak's medical tech. "Impossible," he muttered. "His genetic code is evolving." No, that's not the right word. It's as if every possible version of his DNA is trying to express itself simultaneously. Arya felt a chill run down her spine. "The multiverse," she whispered. "He's still connected to it somehow." As the medical team worked feverishly to stabilize Nexus, Arya found herself pushed to the sidelines. She watched helplessly as human and Kryvax scientists alike battled against laws of physics they barely understood, trying to save a being who had transcended the very concept of individual existence. Hours blurred into days. Arya refused to leave the Med Bay, catching fitful moments of sleep in a chair beside Nexus's stasis pod. She was there when his heart stopped for the first time, and again when a surge of crimson energy brought him back from the brink. She witnessed his form shift and change, sometimes resembling the war beast she knew, other times taking on aspects that seemed to defy the very laws of biology. On the fifth day, as hope began to fade, an unexpected visitor arrived. "Admiral on deck," Captain Graves called out, snapping to attention as Admiral Yoshida strode into the Med Bay. The Admiral's eyes widened as she took in the scene, the fusion of human and Kryvax technology, the exhausted faces of the scientific team, and at the center of it all, the flickering form of Nexus. "I came as soon as I received your report," Yoshida said, her voice hushed with awe. "Is it true? Did you really save the multiverse?" Arya finished, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. "Yeah, we did. But at what cost?" Admiral Yoshida approached Nexus's stasis pod, her expression a mixture of wonder and concern. "Lieutenant Chen, what you and your team have accomplished, it's beyond anything we could have imagined. But now we face a new challenge. The existence of the quantum crucible, the knowledge you've brought back, it's too big to keep contained." A tense silence fell over the room. They all understood the implications. If word got out about the power to access and influence other realities, it could reignite the very war they had sought to end. Before anyone could respond, a surge of energy pulsed through the Med Bay. Equipment sparked and sizzled, and the stasis pod housing Nexus began to glow with an otherworldly light. "It's happening again," Dr. Venn shouted, her fingers dancing across controls. "His quantum state is fluctuating wildly. I can't stabilize." Her words were cut off as the stasis pod exploded in a nova of crimson energy. Everyone was thrown back, shielding their eyes from the blinding flash. When the light faded, they looked up to see. Nexus stood before them, but not as they had known him. His form rippled and shifted, at times appearing as the war beast they recognized, at others taking on aspects that seemed to blend human, Krevax, and something altogether alien. His eyes, once a solid glow of bioluminescence, now swirled with the vast expanse of the cosmos itself. "Nexus," Aria breathed, taking a tentative step forward. When he spoke, his voice seemed to echo from 1,000 throats, each one a different version of himself from across the multiverse. "I am Nexus," he intoned, "and I am so much more. I have seen the birth and death of universes, the rise and fall of civilizations across realities. I have been the destroyer of worlds and the savior of existence itself." His gaze fell upon Aria, and in that moment, she felt the weight of infinite possibilities. "You saved me, Aria," he continued, his voice softening. "Not just on that battlefield, but in countless realities, and now I stand at a crossroads of destiny." Admiral Yoshida stepped forward, her military bearing wavering in the face of this cosmic entity. What are you saying?" Nexus turned, his form briefly solidifying into something closer to his original appearance. "The knowledge I possess, the power I wield, it cannot belong to any one species or reality. I have become a Nexus in truth, a living bridge between all possible worlds." He extended a paw/hand/tentacle, its form shifting with each moment, towards the quantum crucible. "This gift you discovered, it's too vast, too dangerous to be controlled by any single group. But it also offers unlimited potential for growth, for understanding." "So what do we do?" Aria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Nexus's form rippled again, and this time, Aria saw flashes of all they had been through together. The battlefield where they first met, the Crimson Nexus, the multiversal crisis they had averted. "We create something new," Nexus declared. "A council of realities, drawn from the best minds and hearts across the multiverse, human, Krevax, and beings you have yet to imagine. Together we will safeguard the quantum crucible, using its power not for war or dominance, but for the betterment of all existence." As the implications of his words sank in, a sense of awe fell over the assembled group. They stood on the precipice of something truly unprecedented, not just peace between two species, but harmony across infinite realities. Admiral Yoshida was the first to speak. "It won't be easy," she said slowly. "There will be those who fear this power, who will try to control or destroy it." Nexus nodded, his form briefly taking on an aspect of ancient wisdom. "The path ahead is fraught with challenges, but I have seen the alternative, endless war, the collapse of reality itself. This is our best hope, not just for our world, but for all worlds." Aria stepped forward, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "Whatever comes next," she said firmly, "we face it together. Human, Krevax, and whatever you are now, Nexus. We started this journey as enemies, became friends, and now we have the chance to reshape the very fabric of existence." As if in response to her words, the quantum crucible pulsed with renewed energy. Images flickered around them, glimpses of other realities, of the vast and infinite possibilities that lay ahead. Nexus's form stabilized one last time, and Aria saw in his eyes a same loyal companion who had stood by her side through impossible odds. "The real journey," he rumbled, his voice once again tinged with that familiar growl, "begins now." With a sense of destiny humming in the air, the unlikely group, human, Krevax, and transcendent war beast, turned to face the shimmering portal of the quantum crucible. Beyond lay not just other worlds, but the promise of a future where the very concept of alien would be forever changed. As they stepped forward together, Aria couldn't help but smile. The abandoned war dog had not only been saved, he had become the key to saving all of existence. And whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew that the bonds forged in the crucible of war and cosmic crisis would see them through. The stars themselves seemed to sing with possibility as the first ambassadors of the Multiversal Council ventured forth, ready to write the next chapter in a story that would echo across infinity. The Nexus Protocol. The quantum crucible hummed with otherworldly energy, its crimson glow bathing the assembled delegates in an ethereal light. Representatives from a dizzying array of realities stood in awe as Nexus, the transcendent war beast, prepared to initiate the Nexus Protocol, a revolutionary system designed to harmonize the multiverse. Aria Chen, now bearing the title of Multiversal Ambassador, stood at the forefront. Her eyes, once merely human, now shimmered with the same cosmic awareness that filled Nexus's gaze. The years spent traversing realities had changed her in ways she was still discovering. Delegates of the Infinite Assembly, Aria began, her voice carrying the weight of countless worlds. Today we stand at the threshold of a new era. The Nexus Protocol isn't just a peacekeeping measure, it's a fundamental reimagining of existence itself. Murmurs rippled through the gathered crowd. Some leaned forward in anticipation, while others shifted uneasily, the magnitude of what they were about to attempt finally sinking in. Zoxol, the Kryvax scientist who had become one of Aria's closest allies, slithered forward. His tentacles, now laced with bioluminescent circuitry, interfaced seamlessly with the quantum technologies surrounding them. The protocol will create a psychic network spanning all realities, he explained, holographic models springing to life around him. It will allow for instantaneous communication and shared experiences across the multiverse, fostering understanding and empathy on a scale never before imagined. Captain Gray's, his once skeptical demeanor now tempered by years of mind-bending adventures, stepped up. But it's not without risks, he warned. We're talking about linking the consciousness of trillions of beings across infinite realities. The potential for chaos, for the loss of individual identity, is precisely why we need Nexus, Aria interjected, gesturing to the massive figure at the center of the chamber. Nexus's form rippled, briefly showcasing glimpses of his myriad selves across realities, the war beast, the peacemaker, the cosmic entity. When he spoke, his voice resonated with the harmony of 1,000 worlds. I will serve as the anchor, Nexus declared. My unique quantum state allows me to exist simultaneously across all realities. I will be the stabilizing force, ensuring that no single consciousness overwhelms the network. Dr. Ven, her body now a seamless blend of organic and quantum technology, approached the central console. The Nexus Protocol isn't just about communication, she added. It's about evolution. By sharing knowledge and experiences across realities, we open up possibilities for advancement that no single universe could achieve alone. As the final preparations were made, a tense silence fell over the assembly. What they were about to attempt would irreversibly change the nature of existence itself. There would be no going back. Aria locked eyes with Nexus, feeling the depth of their bond, a connection that had transcended species, time, and the very fabric of reality. With a nod, she gave the signal. Initiate the Nexus Protocol, she commanded. The quantum crucible flared to life, tendrils of crimson energy arsing out to connect with similar nodes across the multiverse. Nexus roared, his form expanding to encompass the entire chamber, becoming a living conduit for the psychic network. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like a tidal wave of cosmic awareness, it hit. Aria gasped as her consciousness expanded, suddenly aware of countless versions of herself across realities. She was simultaneously a battle-hardened soldier, a pioneering scientist, a diplomat brokering peace between warring galaxies, and so much more. Around her, the delegates experienced similar epiphanies. Species that had been mortal enemies found themselves sharing the hopes, fears, and dreams of their counterparts. Ancient grudges dissolved in the face of newfound understanding. But it wasn't all harmony. The sheer influx of information, of conflicting ideologies and experiences, threatened to overwhelm the network. Realities began to blur, identities started to fragment. Nexus. Aria called out, her voice echoing across dimensions. We need you. The war beast's consciousness expanded, enveloping the entire psychic network. His unique ability to exist in multiple states at once became the stabilizing force they desperately needed. Slowly, order began to emerge from the chaos. The flood of information organized itself into comprehensible streams. Individuals regained their sense of self, now enriched by the experiences of their multiversal counterparts. As the initial shock subsided, a new sense of wonder swept through the assembly. They could feel the potential of this connection, the ability to solve problems by drawing on the collective wisdom of infinite realities to experience life through the eyes of countless different beings. Aria opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face. She could see the awe and emotion reflected in the faces and other sensory organs of the delegates around her. It worked, she breathed, her voice filled with reverence. We did it. Nexus's form coalesced beside her, his eyes swirling with the knowledge of eternity. This is only the beginning, he rumbled. We have opened a door that can never be closed. The real work starts now. As the delegates began to explore this new state of cosmic connectivity, Aria couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought them here. From a chance encounter on a war-torn battlefield to reshaping the very nature of existence, it was a path she could never have imagined. The abandoned war dog had become the linchpin of multiversal harmony. The human who saved him had become a bridge between worlds. And together, they had ushered in an era of unprecedented unity and exploration. As the Nexus Protocol hummed with the collective consciousness of infinite realities, Aria smiled. The universe, no, the multiverse, would never be the same. And she couldn't wait to see what wonders awaited them in this new cosmic dawn. The stars themselves seemed to pulse in rhythm with the Nexus Protocol, a testament to the incredible journey of an unlikely pair who had defied the odds and reshaped the very fabric of existence. Their story, once confined to a single reality, now echoed across the infinite expanse of the multiverse, a beacon of hope, unity, and the limitless potential of understanding. Echoes of eternity. The Nexus Protocol had been active for what felt like both an instant and an eternity. Across the multiverse, civilizations flourished, sharing knowledge and experiences in ways once thought impossible. But with great power came unforeseen consequences, and the cosmic harmony was about to face its greatest test. Aria Chen stood before the Multiversal Council, her form shimmering with quantum energy. Years of exposure to the Nexus Protocol had changed her, transforming her into something beyond human. Beside her, Nexus loomed, his presence a comforting constant in a sea of infinite variables. We have a problem, Aria announced, her voice resonating across realities. The protocol is evolving. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing anomalies cropping up across the multiverse. Entire realities were merging, others were spawning new universes at an alarming rate. The carefully maintained balance was teetering on the brink of chaos. Zuxol, now more energy than matter, rippled with concern. The collective consciousness is becoming self-aware. It's trying to rewrite the fundamental laws of existence. Captain Graves, his form augmented by technology from 1,000 worlds, frowned. Are we talking about the birth of a multiversal god? Or its death? Dr. Venn interjected, her body a swirling vortex of data and organic matter. If this continues, the distinctions between realities could collapse entirely. Everything would become one homogeneous existence. The council chamber erupted into a cacophony of voices and psychic projections. Some argued for immediately shutting down the Nexus Protocol, while others insisted on pushing forward, embracing this new stage of cosmic evolution. Amidst the chaos, Nexus stepped forward. His form shifted rapidly, showcasing the myriad versions of himself across realities. When he spoke, it was with the wisdom of countless lifetimes. "We stand at a crossroads," he rumbled, his voice silencing the discord. "The protocol has given us unity, but at the cost of the very diversity we sought to celebrate. We must find a way to preserve individuality within our cosmic connection." Arya nodded, a plan forming in her mind. "We need to journey to the heart of the protocol itself, not just our consciousnesses, but our physical forms. We have to remind the collective of the value of individual existence." The proposal was met with shock and awe. To physically travel to the nexus point of all realities was thought impossible, even with their advanced technology. "It's suicide," Graves warned. "The energies at the core of the multiverse would tear us apart." "Not if we use the quantum crucible," Zoxol countered, his tentacles weaving complex equations in the air. "We could create a protective bubble, allowing us to navigate the spaces between realities." Dr. Ven's eyes lit up with scientific fervor. "And if we calibrate it correctly, we could use Nexus as an anchor point. His unique quantum state could stabilize our journey." As the council debated the merits and risks of the plan, Arya felt a familiar presence in her mind. She turned to Nexus, seeing the determination in his cosmic gaze. "We started this journey together," Nexus said, his thoughts merging with hers. "It's fitting that we see it through to the end." Arya smiled, feeling the weight of their shared history across infinite realities. Together, she agreed. With the decision made, preparations began in earnest. The most brilliant minds from across the multiverse worked tirelessly, pushing the boundaries of science and metaphysics to make the impossible journey possible. As the day of departure arrived, Arya stood before the quantum crucible, now modified into a vessel capable of traversing the very fabric of existence. Nexus was by her side, his form pulsing with the energy of countless realities. The chosen team boarded: Arya, Nexus, Zoxol, Graves, and Dr. Ven. Each represented not just their original species, but the infinite potential of multiversal cooperation. Initiating quantum drive, Dr. Ven announced, her fingers dancing across controls that defied conventional physics. The crucible hummed to life, its energy building to a crescendo. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp around them. "Remember," Arya said, addressing not just her team but the entire multiverse watching through the Nexus protocol. "We go not to end what we've built, but to ensure it can thrive. To remind the cosmic consciousness of the beauty found in diversity, in the unique paths each reality takes." With a final surge of power, the quantum crucible tore through the walls of reality. They were plunging into the unknown, towards the very heart of existence itself. As they traveled through layers of reality, the team witnessed wonders beyond imagination. They saw universes being born and dying in the span of heartbeats, realities where the very concept of time flowed backwards, and dimensions that operated on laws of physics they could barely comprehend. But at the core of it all, they felt a pull, the collective consciousness of the Nexus protocol, growing, evolving, threatening to consume all in its path. Finally, they arrived at the Nexus point, a swirling maelstrom of pure cosmic energy, the source from which all realities sprang. "It's beautiful," Arya breathed, awe overwhelming her. "And terrifying," Graves added, his augmented senses struggling to process what they were seeing. As they watched, tendrils of energy began to reach out towards their vessel. The protocol had sensed their presence and was trying to assimilate them, to add their uniqueness to its growing collective. "Now, Nexus," Arya called out. The war beast roared, channeling the full power of his multiversal existence. His consciousness expanded, touching the cosmic awareness that threatened to engulf them. Through their shared link, Arya joined her mind with Nexus's. Together, they reached out to the heart of the protocol, not with words, but with experiences. They shared the joy of discovery, the pain of loss, the uniqueness of individual journeys that had led them to this point. The team joined in, each adding their own stories, their own perspectives. They showed the protocol the value of diversity, the strength found in differences, the beauty of individual choice. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the cosmic maelstrom began to change. The homogenizing force pulled back, replaced by a web of interconnected but distinct threads of reality. As they watched in awe, the heart of the multiverse reshaped itself. No longer a force seeking to consume all, but a network celebrating the infinite diversity of existence. Nexus turned to Arya, his form stabilizing into the familiar shape of the war beast she had first encountered on that distant battlefield. "It understands now," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "We've given it the gift of perspective." As the team prepared to return home, they knew that they had changed the course of cosmic history. The Nexus protocol would continue, but now as a force of connection rather than assimilation. Each reality would retain its unique flavor while benefiting from the shared wisdom of the multiverse. Arya looked out at the swirling cosmic tapestry before them, feeling a sense of completion. The abandoned war dog and the human who saved him had come full circle, becoming the saviors not just of their world, but of all possible worlds. As they engaged the quantum drive for the journey home, Arya couldn't help but smile. Their adventure, it seemed, was far from over. With infinite realities to explore and a newfound cosmic balance to maintain, the future stretched out before them, filled with endless possibilities. The stars themselves seemed to twinkle with renewed vigor, each one a testament to the incredible journey of understanding, cooperation, and love that had reshaped the very fabric of existence. And at the heart of it all stood Nexus and Arya, once enemies, now the guardians of a harmonious multiverse.